What's going on, Commonwealth? Jimmy Martin here. John Hunt back for the first live episode of Bluegrass Soccer Cast, which is, of course, your home for all things soccer here in our Commonwealth. John, it's our first live episode. How are you feeling, man?
Feeling good, man.
Yeah?
Got some games on here, hopefully soon. There we
Yeah,
go.
so shout out to the folks that are watching us live. I know you've got a lot of opportunities of different things you can be watching. Team USA playing right now. If you see me look down on my phone, no, my mother-in-law, it is not me reading anything other than for this podcast. So just to kind of give you some live updates on things. I know LouCity is about to kick off here in a few minutes. But we really appreciate you all tuning in for this episode. But John, let's start off things today by mixing it up a little bit. You know, we normally start by going off the top, but today we're going to go straight to the bottom line. And John, I want to start talking about what's going on with LouCity. They've got a match tonight where they are taking on the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. LouCity is currently sitting in fourth place in the Eastern Conference. They are hosting the second place Pittsburgh team at Lynn Family, like I mentioned. And LouCity and Pittsburgh are both in a rare form. Both are on unbeaten streaks. So it's a highly contested matchup. LouCity is playing their what is this, fifth game, and they will play 5 games in 15 days. Both teams are aiming to keep their winning streak alive, like I said. I don't know kind of what happened. John, are you still there? No? Maybe? Okay. Well, I'll keep talking. For LouCity, some really positive things are going to be happening tonight. They're going to see Tooch Tooch to make his 200th appearance for LouCity, which is phenomenal. So that's really awesome for him. We're really excited to have him. We had, I think it was Lancaster in the last match, got his 200th cap for the team. So now back-to-back matches, we're having 200 cap players. There we go, John. Welcome back.
Okay, I have no idea what just happened there.
Me either, my friend.
I don't know what I touched. Something just happened. My computer just went to sleep. So,
ooh. Well, hey, you know what? We're live, so that happens.
Yeah.
I just kept us rolling here, talking about LouCity and Pittsburgh, John. A couple of my notes to talk about. Tooch making his 200th appearance. Both teams are unbeaten streaks currently. For LouCity, they have 5 games in 15 days, so that's a lot in a small period. But kind of talk to me about what your thoughts are on this matchup tonight, John.
My thoughts are this in general. This is in my opinion, it's the must-win game for Louisville. They need to win at home. Obviously, it's a home match, so you need to win. And honestly, the cards are in their favor. This is a crazy even matchup because
LOL, Louisville Cardinals, LOL.
Yeah, this is a crazy even matchup. They played just 11 days ago in Pittsburgh, which was a 0-0 draw.
But it should have been a Louisville victory. Can we agree on that, John?
Should have, but stuff happens.
Agreed.
Both teams are in terms of road versus home splits. They're even on the home, even in goal differential. LouCity has not drawn at home, but
which is strange, right?
It's weird. Of their 8 games, they've won 5, lost 3 at home.
They're literally the opposite of Racing Louisville, who are like the queens of the draws anywhere.
Yeah, and then, funny enough, 5 of the Riverhounds is... No, I'm sorry. 5 of the Riverhounds' draws are on the road, and both of their losses are as well. Both teams are even on goal differential going into this game. The Riverhounds are on a 5-game unbeaten run. However, they haven't scored a lot of goals in that run. They've had...
To be fair, Louisville hasn't either in their run.
Yeah, but Louisville is coming in with 3 straight shutouts.
Agreed, and that's something I wanted to talk about. Their goalie Oliver is really trying to keep that going. It's the second longest streak in club history. So if he gets another one tonight, and I think just one more, he would tie the record. And it would be really awesome for him to continue that goal. And it goes back to what you said on Monday's show, John. You know, the goalkeeping is what's been keeping LouCity alive so far.
Oh yeah, it's 100% that's keeping them alive. Um, and while coming in on 5 games unbeaten, the Riverhounds have 3 draws in that span. Every single draw, one of those draws being against Louisville. Every single draw they haven't scored in. So they've only scored 2 goals, I think, in this run in games, but they've been shut out 3 times in the last 5 games. I think it's the last 2, and then like their 4th game, they were shut out. And also, the Riverhounds have yet not won at Lynn Family Stadium since July of 2020.
Wow. So during the pandemic years, the only time they could win at Lynn Family.
So it's been 2.5. I guess that's maybe 3 seasons technically now, since it was halfway through the. So it's been basically 3 full seasons since the Riverhounds have won in Lynn Family Stadium. So Louisville, that's why it's a must-win game. You beat these guys. You beat or draw them at home. Typically, they're above you in the table. The Riverhounds are second. And Louisville's 4th by a point. They're only a point ahead. So this can really catapult Louisville up into the top of the East, whereas many people thought they should be.
That's where I would have thought they would have been. Plus tonight, Niall McCabe coming back from injury. They're hopeful to get Brian Ownby back. I didn't have a check the starting lineup before we started here, John, to see if Ownby was on the bench for that. But you know, if you get both of those guys back, plus what Oliver's been doing in goal, a little bit more from Mushagalusa, I think this should be a win. Now, John, I'm sure you're familiar with my predictions that are absolutely surely to go semi wrong in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm going to take LouCity tonight to win 1-0. I just think it's time for LouCity to start playing better. Time to rise up and start playing like you're a top tier team. Or if they lose this one, and this is kind of what you were alluding to a little bit there, John. If they lose this one, I think it's time for LouCity fans to start thinking, okay, maybe this isn't our year to chase another title.
I wouldn't necessarily put the panic button on yet, but I would. I don't know who you would put the blame towards, because they are injured. They've had a lot of injury type stuff. I might give it with they're getting healthy again. If they lose this one, that is the start of panic. Not like calling for the coach's head, nothing like that. But the start of like, do we need to change some stuff next in the off season? Do we need a new coach? Like that, those like back of your mind thoughts are going to start to creep in if they do lose this. I feel they should win this about 2-0 if they keep their attacking premise that they had against Loudoun. They should, in my opinion, they should win 2-0. But I think the more realistic thing is a 1-0 victory.
Good. We're on the same page. Let's go. Speaking of doing a little shimmy, a little dancing, LouCity will actually have their second international friendly this weekend against Mexican side Atlante FC. And in that, they will celebrate Latin Culture Night. So make sure that you get out to the game. If you're there tonight, hey, thanks for paying attention to us while the game is just starting. But also make sure you get out there on Saturday night, enjoy the festivities, because it seems like it should be a pretty good atmosphere.
Yeah, and like I said on Monday, that's what you use friendlies for.
Yep.
Perfect for theme nights. They're perfect for to bring in these type of fans type thing. I'm not sure how you play people in that sense.
Yeah.
I am a when it comes to that, I am always worried about injuries. The same thing where I was I didn't fully like that the U.S. played Wales. The women played Wales right before going to the World Cup. It's just it in the back of my head, the worst can happen type thing, and you're down someone, or you're gonna lose. You could get someone back from injury, and all of a sudden they get injured again, just because you're playing them in a friendly, which is, in all honesty, is just a moneymaker. That's what they exist for. They have no meaning outside of making money and having some exposure in another country.
Well, but that was going to be the point I was going to say. Like, how much exposure are you even getting? I mean, this is I believe they're a second tier Mexican side. So it's not like you're playing, Tigres or anything like that, or Pumas. Like, you're not playing a big club. You're not playing Club America down there. Like, come on. Yeah. How much exposure are you really going to get? I really want to see more from Puels, the Danish forward. I want to see more from him. To me, so far, he's been a smidge of a disappointment. I know he hasn't played much, but I still want to see more from him. He's got a lot of talent. If you look up his highlights and stuff like that, you're going to see how talented this guy can be. So far, he has not shown up for LouCity.
Yeah, the difficulty I have with judging players, like, he was a big signing, I agree with that. It's very hard for me to judge lower tier players and what you're supposed to expect, because I feel more often people are picked for the sense of fitting the system. Mm-hmm. And so I'll agree that the system hasn't been benefiting from him, or he hasn't been benefiting from the system. Either way, there's something that's been going wrong.
Something has been going on. Yeah. And if you go back to some of the things I've said before, there seems to be some kind of culture issue in that locker room between Mushagalusa not playing with Ownby as much this season. I don't know if that was a schism. I know in one of the matches I got to attend earlier this year, Brian Ownby was quite upset at the coaching staff and at playing time and stuff like that. And yeah, he's super competitive, so you can kind of wave some of that away at that, right? But it seemed to be more than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the chemistry stuff is a big thing. I fully, you need chemistry in soccer, because shape and all that stuff is important. Trust is important. That's how the system is built. So if it's coaching staff divides between players and the coaches, if it's positional group divides type thing, or even if it's truly like the locker room is divided, or they're being cliquey, like they're not really divided, but they're not really all together, something's going wrong in the sense that, and it could be they're getting back into it. It could be the injury type thing. I'm not in there, so I'm not going to speculate to who's the issue or what's going on, but there's definitely something wrong from last year to this point.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't know what it is, but something's different. Mm-hmm. John, we'll stay in Louisville and we'll talk a little bit about racing. They're on their international break right now, so they don't have any upcoming matches until July 21st. So come back, for more Racing Louisville content in a couple of weeks when they're back and looking at stuff.
Which is weird that they're on an international break and then they're playing the second day of the World Cup.
Yeah, it's weird.
I am questioning why the NWSL is playing at all.
Great question.
Right now. Yeah. Because as we saw in this winter, the men's leagues all stopped. They did not play during the World Cup. And granted, not every, Racing Louisville is only sending 6 players. That's not your entire squad. You can very much play with it's not the sense of Manchester City that sent 17 players type thing. It's not your whole squad, but the entire U.S. women's team, I think, besides one player, is from the NWSL.
Yeah, so across the whole league, it's a big thing. But you were talking to me about the numbers from Racing Louisville in the World Cup. What were those earlier?
There's 6 players across 5 continents. Let me pull that up. So obviously you have Demilo, who's representing USA her first time. Granted, I don't think she's gonna get that much playing time.
Probably not.
She's has very few appearances, and she's in a very experienced group.
Yep.
She's got Julia Ertz in front of her, Andy Sullivan, Lindsey Horan. If she gets playing time, it's either an emergency scenario or her skills are better against a certain team, that sort of sense. And then there's Ari Borges. She's going to be representing Brazil. Alec Chiddick is for Australia. Uchenna Kanu is representing Nigeria. Now, if Nigeria plays, that's another question because there's issues similar to Canada in terms of paying their players, where Canada has not yet run out of money. They're close to. Nigeria is like they haven't paid their coach fully in 14 months. They paid them like half of what they're paid. There's bonus promises not going out type thing. So there's talk about the Super Falcons boycotting the World Cup,
which would be insane. Like, we're so close.
It would be insane, but it's this sense of like you need to pay your players type thing.
Absolutely.
Like with Canada and with the whole, like the US got their stuff ironed out. My whole thing with internet, I'm saying this, if you are representing your country, the pay should be equal. You don't like it doesn't matter. People argue that the men make, at least in America, the men make more revenue or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're representing your country. People should not be paid based on like how popular you are.
Nope. Honestly, you should be paid on your achievement, and that definitely in the USA would put way more money in the women's side than the men's.
Yeah, you should be paid for your achievement, but paying for the game, like being in the game, should be equal no matter where you are on the roster, what sport you're playing. In general, that's just my take on it. Like, your club is for financial gains, if you want to look at it that way. Or country is the honor. It's this thing. I'm not saying they need to go back to like amateur.
No, Lord, no,
it needs to be even and equal. And then I'm gonna butcher this name. Thembi Galata. She's playing for South Africa, and then Wang Shang is representing China.
Well done. I would have absolutely butchered my way through all of that. You did your best, my friend. Good job.
And there's only 2 of them are guaranteed to play each other, and that's Chiddick and Kanu, or Australia and Nigeria are in the same group. Everyone else is in different groups. So the only way they'll face each other in the match is knockouts, if they make it that far.
Well, and USA and China easily could meet in a semifinal or a final, so that could be another matchup.
It could be, yeah. I think they would, if they do, it'd be semifinal path.
I think so. I said final, and I was like, I don't think that's right. I just rolled with it.
I don't know off the top of my head what group everyone's in and like how that formatting works.
Well, make sure you come back. Probably next week, we will have a full preview of the Women's World Cup. See, John, this all just rolls together beautifully. So if you want that full recap, that full preview, make sure you come back to the Bluegrass Soccercast to keep getting more of a preview for the Women's World Cup. John, let's jump over to your favorite team here in Kentucky, Lexington Sporting Club, as they start that long journey out to Fresno, California, to take on Central Valley Fugue. Fuego. Yeah, sorry. Typo on my part.
Yep. So this is first ever meeting, like most matches are for Lex. But in a sense, it's a first ever meeting, but it's a must win.
Yes.
Fuego is
dog water. Absolute
bottom
trash.
of the table. They have 1 win at home and 6 losses with a -7 goal difference. Granted, Lex is 0-2 and 2 draws, 6 losses on the road with a -7 goal differential.
But they've
Fuego is
got to win this.
yes, they have to win this because Fuego is coming off of 5 straight losses where they've only scored 1 goal. Granted, they just fired their head coach, Martin Vasquez, on July 5th. So this is the second game since then, but the first like full game because they played Madison 3 days after that. So it's like the first full game where their interim head coach had the chance to do something besides just like trying to figure out because one of those is a travel day, all that type of stuff. Lexington is 1-1-3 in their last 5. So there is, but they have 3 straight losses with a goal differential of -4, which is -1 if you take out Tormenta.
Right.
The Tormenta game, so it's not
but
bad.
That still torments all of your nightmares.
Yes.
See what I
very
did there?
much so.
See what I did there?
But yes, it's a must-win game for Lexington. It's going to be a late game. It kicks off at 10 p.m. because Fresno is like the isolated thing. That's the thing I don't understand about League One. They are adding like another team out there, but like Lexington is technically right now.
Yeah, Spokane and
Brooklyn.
No, hold up. I thought I just saw
there was speculation
Spokane
that Arkansas
and Santa Barbara Bay or Santa Barbara Sky.
Oh yeah. I forgot about Santa Barbara. And then there's one going to Brooklyn, but that's the thing. Like as of the active clubs, Lex is like the 5th most west in a 12-team league because we're like a little more western than Chattanooga and Knoxville. But then it's Madison, Omaha, Colorado, Fuego.
Omaha should not be in your top 3 West Coast teams.
We're a southern. We're genuinely a Southern Conference. There's 2 teams in the North Carolina. There's 2 in South Carolina, or 2 in Georgia, 1 in South Carolina, 2 in Tennessee, and then us. And then the other 4 out of the 8 are all spread out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. So, John, I really think I'm agreeing with you. I think this is Lexington's to lose. I think they have to come home with a victory. A draw would not turn any gears. It would not progress the club in any way. So I really think I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb, and I'm going to take Lexington to win 2-0, which they've only done a couple of times this year. So I'm really hoping that they can put them to bed early, and then just coast out, get home with all 3 points.
I honestly say, 2-0 would actually be like the only acceptable like minimum, because I don't think a 1-0 draw, like if you watch the Charlotte game, they played really well. They just were going up against Austin Pack, who is the best goalkeeper in USL 1, in my opinion. He's got the most saves. I believe he has the most saves per 90. So they were just facing an incredible goalkeeper, and they had more shots on goal in that game against Charlotte. So if they can just keep that attacking pace against Fuego, I feel like this could be the like barn burner for Lexington. Could be. But 2-0 is like the really realistic thing. I would love if they like took out all the frustrations of the past 3 games, like Tormenta did on us, to Fuego.
Yes, just unload 3, 4, 5 even. Make up that entire Tormenta game in one. But, John, the last match that I want to talk about for today is actually at halftime already. Team USA and Panama in the Gold Cup semifinals out in beautiful San Diego, California at Snapdragon Stadium. Team USA 0, Panama 0 at half. John, I have not been able to watch it. I don't have it on the house here. But if you've been able to pay attention to it, have you noticed anything? What are your preview notes? All that jazz.
I've been following slightly, but it's kind of out of my field of view without turning my head all the way. They're looking good. It needs to be noted that Panama is not no slouch.
No.
We do have a better record against them all time of 11-3-3. 2 of those losses have come in the Gold Cup, though.
Yep.
So it's not like we should beat them. Now, granted, I don't know too much about the overall Panama national team and their depth. We are playing with our B/C team, how people want to look at it. So we have Matt Turner in goal, who is played
In
phenomenal.
Matt Turner, we trust on this channel.
Yes, who's played phenomenal. And there's been a lot of talk on U.S. soccer Twitter about the whole B versus C, especially after us beating Canada, who had more people from their World Cup roster on the team. In general,
Well,
it's
I think
hard
that's only going to intensify in this Panama match because if I'm not mistaken, this is the Panama A team. Like, this is the best team that they have. Similar to how Jamaica is attacking this Gold Cup, so is Panama.
And that would make sense. They didn't play in the World Cup. They didn't play in the
Yep.
Nations League. Like, this is the biggest tournament they've had. And but people bring up, well, why isn't the U.S. Why don't they care? And I think, in my opinion, it was because of the World Cup. The
Yep.
World Cup was in the winter, and as much as people don't realize it, it's just because they may play one game a week. They're still training every day. These guys still deserve a vacation.
Yep.
Type thing. And where you could argue Matt Turner's playing because he's a backup at Arsenal. Like, he doesn't get that much playing time, so he's going for as much as he can get. I think there's a mixture of that. I also think he likes playing for the U.S. Like, genuinely likes playing for it. And I think some of the other big names of the U.S. more use this off-season type thing to make better moves for their entire career, with, in the sense of Pulisic, with Weah possibly moving, McKenzie moving type thing. I think it was just a mixture of, like, they needed to do stuff to would better their whole overall careers, which would better their chances at the World Cup in general versus this one Gold Cup.
Absolutely. So I think Team USA will win this. I wrote in the preview that I think it'll be a 1-0 decision. I don't think this will go to penalties or extra time. I think Team USA should be able to beat this keeper in regulation. But hey, I thought they would beat Canada 2-1, and it had to go to penalties for that one. So we'll see. I totally forgot where I was going to go next, but we're going to skip talking about the U.S. women's team. Like I said, we're going to talk about them next week. But I do want to talk about if you would like to sponsor this podcast and give us a little support. We have a Buy Me Coffee account. So if you want to buy us coffee, or support the show in any way, it can be $1, it can be $5, it could be $20, whatever your heart is feeling. We'd really appreciate the support. We're trying to grow this platform and get some additional equipment and stuff like that, but any support would be greatly appreciated. But John, with that out of the way, let's now go off the top. And there was huge news that happened last night, John, like big time news. Or maybe it wasn't. We'll talk about it. There was a report that came out from the Atlantic, or the Athletic. Sorry, jeez. If you can't tell, I'm really dyslexic. So, like, reading some of these things just absolutely KOD. Like, I am done. From the Athletic, and it's funny because I wrote Atlantic in my script. Anyways, from the Athletic, that said the USL is exploring promotion and relegation. So here are the facts from the article, and John, feel free to add anything to it if I missed it. They plan on a 3-tiered promotion and relegation system: USL Champion, League One, and then kind of what I'm calling a reimagination of League Two of some sorts, because it can't be at its current state.
Kind of. From what I've read on the report, it might be a league in between one and the championship, or it could be there. It's the idea of 3-tier, because the thing with USL 2 right now is USL 2 is not a professional league. Yep. So this would be professional, and there's really not. They had to make 3 at least, because there's really not that much competitiveness in a two-team, in a two-league pro rel system because you get relegated, but it's not that far down,
Right.
type thing. And there's like, you drop, but you can't drop again.
Yeah. So we, like you said, we would need all three leagues to be pretty defined and to have those teams that can move up and down. Potential start for this restructuring could be the 2024 season. That's next year. Like, this is on a fast track, with results in 2024 affecting 2025 placement, and then promotion and relegation would start in 25. And according to the Athletic, their sources seem to be very optimistic about it, but not all of the votes are in. So, or, like, they don't have quite everyone's opinion in to say, yes, this is a guarantee. John, I quickly just want to say, like, I'm very excited about this, and I feel very good thoughts towards this. I think this is a good thing. What are kind of your overall thoughts about this?
So overall, one, this is a in terms of American-based soccer coverage, this is beating a dead horse in general about pro rel. Pro rel needs to happen for anyone really to take American soccer seriously, as much as closed leagues work great financially. It's needed. The pro rel system is truly needed in the soccer landscape because it's ingrained in the spirit of the game at
It
this
is.
point.
I mean, even within the laws of the game, right? Like, even within FIFA regulations, promotion and relegation is built into parts of the fair play policies.
Mm-hmm. Because FIFA believes in the random club, some guy and his buddy starts at a bar that can somehow make it all the way to the big leagues, type thing. And
It's
that's
literally the
how
American dream.
Yeah, it's the American dream. That's how some teams started in general. That's like Liverpool exists as a spin-off of Everton. Like, fans got
Yep.
pissy and some players got pissy and like, we're gonna start another team. It's
Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday. That's how a lot of these teams started. It was this person, the expat, like Inter Miami, not Miami, Inter Milan.
Hey.
Inter Milan started as like I'm gonna get this mixed up, but because I know the facts, but either AC Milan or Inter Milan were wanting just like Italians to play, and like expats, like British immigrants in Milan, were wanting to play, and so they broke off and formed their own club. Or it was the reverse, like they were playing and they just wanted a team of Italians, type thing. That's how that split happened in Milan. But pro rel is truly part of the system. Now, as some people are a little confused, the this is going to go on at the Governors Conference, USL Governors Conference. That's going to be in Colorado Springs, August 9th through the 10th. And it is not the vote. What they're voting on is not necessarily yes, no, pro rel. It's interest.
Right. Exactly.
Is there enough interest by the owners? Now, I don't, with like LouCity sense, because they technically have like 47 owners. Is it just John Nevin going, representing all of them? Are they all voting
Could
prior?
I would imagine that to be fair and to LouCity, I think they would probably meet before that, send one representative to cast their vote, and that would how that would go. I assume.
Yeah,
But you know what they say about assuming.
I don't know how the votes go. I don't know if USL is saying each team gets one vote or each owner of a team gets one vote. I genuinely don't know how it goes, because if they do each owner of a team, it could change. If they do each team, it could change. It's all, the thing I'm scared of is the financials.
Yep.
Because this is what I've told people. Closed league is amazing financially. Because there's no risk of losing money. Famously, in Sunderland Till I Die, they document how bad relegation can be on a team's financial thing, because you are spending you're spending Premier League level and you get dropped down and you still have these contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some teams have made clauses to where they basically have to sell certain players if they get relegated to
Right, because they
save
can't afford it.
themselves. Yeah, to save themselves, and they put that in the contract with the player, and the player agrees to it, but not all of that time. And so that's the scare. Now, here's my thing. I don't know what the financial difference between playing in USL Championship and playing in League One right now. There's obviously some is my guess of picking playing in League 3 versus League 2 in terms of
Right.
expansion fees.
Yeah,
But
your expansion fees would be literally like millions of dollars different between Champion and USL League One. I believe League One is 35 mil for a team, or maybe that was the Champion was 35 mil, and then it was 3.5 mil for League One. That seems more realistic.
according to the Athletic, it was 5 million is the
Oh,
League One.
okay.
Fee.
So maybe what I was reading was from a couple years ago. That was 3.5 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That is from what the Athletic said. This report is from Tom Bogart and Jeff Reuter. That's what the asking fee is in it, and they said in the thing that the division they would put between expansion sides could buy into, but current clubs cannot. So Lex can't just pay to be promoted into League 2 or Tormenta or One Knox. They can't pay to get in. So it's not in the sense of like USL 2 where you can raise enough funds and kind of get there and get established and then buy your way in like Knoxville did.
I kind of don't know how I feel about that then, John, because, if you're coming in to the league, shouldn't you start at the bottom, not start in the middle? I mean, it's nice that you're not starting at the bottom, but like for those clubs that have been around, if Richmond Kickers all of a sudden is dropped down to the bottom of the USL, I mean, that's not a good thing for that club.
They kind of chose to do that.
They did. They have chose. You're right. Because at one point, they could have even potentially been an early MLS club. They had so much funding, early on in their history. But now they've constantly choosing to go lower and lower and lower. You're right.
And the only reason I'm kind of okay with clubs choosing to buy into the middle tier expansion side is just because with the current structure and based on both current teams and added teams, I believe it's at USL 1 is at 15 with the added because it's 12 current plus Santa Barbara, Spokane, and Brooklyn. And then the championship has 24 currently and adding 4. So that's like 43 people.
Right.
43 clubs.
Yeah.
So
and then the League 2 has 121 clubs. Like, that's insane.
Now, I did project this earlier in a group chat I was in. If you keep the current format, you would genuinely need to just, I think it was you need to promote one USL side or USL 2 side to bring it to 44. And I think it brought it down to like, was it 16? Let me look. 44.
Well, and while you're looking, like, I will say, like, that is one of my concerns, right? So I've got a whole like pro and con list, and I'll talk about it here in a second. But that was one of my concerns, was talking about how many teams are in each league, because there's only a finite amount of spaces. And if we're looking at, would you say 44? How many teams are?
Yes, my idea was this is not adding that third league. It's moving USL 2 as the third league. It'd be 44 teams in between championship and 1, so 22 per. And then one. This is with one USL 2 side being promoted to one USL League 1, and then one going defunct and folding just for numbers' sake of working out. And then it would be, I said 6 divisions, kind of like how National League or the Spanish third division is broken out. They break it into groups. So it'd be like 6 divisions, 6 divisions of 20. You take the top 2 of each division. You Champions League draw them, put them in group stages. So that's 3 groups of 4, and then you take the winners of each group, and those are the 3 sides promoted to League One.
Wait, so you're saying that each group, champion League One and League Two, would have that many teams?
No. So
Okay, hold on. Now you lost me.
Championship has 22.
Uh-huh.
League One has 22.
Okay.
League USL 2 has 6 groups of 20 for the
Gotcha.
120 teams, and you can regionalize that. You take the top 2 of each of the 6 groups. You do Champions League ball draw, or however you want to. You put them in 3 groups of 4. The winner of each group goes on. And if you determine tiebreakers that way, it could be goal differential. It could be like you have to play another game for tiebreaker sense. That brings 3 teams up, and so that means 19 through 21 drops, 20 through 22 drop, and then you could do like the championship does for League One. 1 gets automatic promotion, and then you have playoff for the other 2 spots.
I mean, that's an idea. I'm not as optimistic about the League Two teams, if I'm being honest. I think
I'm not. That's having them all go professional. That's having 120
Yeah.
teams or so go full professional. That was just my idea. Without some championship teams would have to drop in that sense, just to make the leagues even. But that was my idea without having like adding any teams that we have no idea are coming, or creating that thing of like, well, what USL 1 sides get auto promoted. This would be based off that 2024. What sides get auto promoted? What sides get basically auto relegated? Because my curious thing with the championship right now is, how do you determine relegation when you have 2 conferences?
Yes, that was another thought I had. Like, this country is so big, right? Like, and this is a lot of people's argument against promotion and relegation in America, right? If, for example, if it's 1 for 1 out, 1 in, if LouCity is out and the one that comes in is Spokane, you can't put Spokane in the East, Spokane, Washington. Like, you can't put them in the East. So, like, you've got to redo all of that. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lexington in USL League One, they're a little bit more of that one league, right?
Say again.
Like their League One is not divided up in like East West, is it?
League One is 12 teams. Top 6 make playoffs. 1 and 2 get byes, but it's 12. It's not divided. I don't think it's going to get divided. I understand why the championship does divide, because they have 24 teams. But at the same time, the championship in England and League One in England and League Two in England all have 24 teams as well, and they're able to. Granted, England is super small.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like, travel there is short and easy. A long trip is 4 hours. Here, 4 hours could be that could be your closest opponent.
Yeah, they have a long trip of 4 hours by car. They also have England has better train systems than us, so it's easier to travel in general. And that's a knock on American fans. Like, well, y'all don't travel. It's like, well, my team is playing in Fresno on Saturday. That is a plane ride or like a 2-hour drive or a 2-day drive.
Yeah, I was like 2 hour. Holy crap! How fast you drive?
2-day drive.
I mean, not to ride with you, John.
And I'm sorry, and this is gonna be a knock on that. I don't want to drive through Kansas. I don't.
You heard that? F you, Kansas. Get out of here.
That is flat. I hate driving through Ohio, because like north of Dayton and Ohio is the same way. It's just flat, and cornfield is so boring.
Eat it, Ohio.
It's just crazy. But
I say all of that, but I used to live in Iowa, and I love Iowa because it's a little rolly. But when you get to Nebraska, Kansas, boy, that is flatter than my countertop right here.
It's insanely flat. I don't understand how the world could be so genuinely flat.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah.
And John, going kind of back to this, I want to give some of my thoughts here as well. Like, I do think this is a good thing, but really, this news yesterday, it's a big nothing burger. Like,
right now.
cool,
Yeah,
they're going to have a vote to explore the idea. Like, it's not like this is happening. I know a lot of people were having live streams yesterday. I even participated in one, talking about this, but nothing's changed. So
yeah,
I don't want
right.
to get too excited about it. And I'm sorry if that makes me Debbie Downer, but I'll wear that crown today because nothing's changed.
And I'll agree with that. That's the biggest thing of be careful. Now, I genuinely think with the press that this is getting and the coverage it's getting, that if there is the interest there, I think it will happen. So I think this
Absolutely.
vote is crucial to where if it's yes, there's enough interest, it's going to happen. And now, fans, you have what 3-4 weeks to do it.
Yes.
There is
That
a guy,
was my next point.
Chris Kessel,
Yep.
said this, like make sure you get things. Uh, there's a website where you can get a hashtag ProRel for USA banner for like $20. It's like a 2x8. The reason I bring this up because the Railbirds leadership are debating getting this.
You definitely need to. If you all support the idea, right? And I
Yeah,
think you
and
would.
we posted on our socials these votes, and so far they're overwhelmingly majority. It's like 97, and we've had maybe 1 or 2 votes that say no. And I think those votes that say no could be any number of reasons. Could be the
Right.
financial. The financial thing is truly a thing because America is the only league in the world where I know where a top flight team folded as a top flight team. Not a former top flight, not one that was like the Luton Town sense where they dropped all the
Yeah.
way down and were near folding. Not the Tampa Bay Mutiny and Miami Fusion were in the MLS and they folded.
Yep.
Type thing. Technically Chivas folded, but they also became LAFC, you could argue. That one's a little confusing.
Yeah.
They
Well,
happened
is
at
that even the
the same
same
time.
ownership though? Like, it's the same franchise, but
Yeah, kind of different ownership, but it basically was like Chivas folded and like a month later LAFC was announced, so it was
right.
weird.
Yeah, no, they definitely have different owners because like oh my god, I just dropped his name.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. I want to say Will Ferrero, and I was like, that's not it at all. Welcome to the podcast, folks. Welcome to my brain. It's a totally different group, but yeah, like teams at our top tier have folded recently, right? So that
Yeah,
is going to be an
uh,
important thing is how is that money going to be spent? And I think, and I'm fingers crossing here because I'm a big ESPN fan. I'm really hoping that USL can get a deal with ESPN similar to some of the things that they've done with like their college football teams and like the college leagues to get that multiple years, multiple leagues, all on one location, and then really dive in and focus on getting that attention that the league really needs.
and if it's pro rel, they need to have incentives per each league because there
Yeah,
needs to be a reason to want to go up. If it's the
more
same
moolah,
money,
baby.
if it's the same money, and this is what I said to people, if it's the same money to being in the finishing last in the bottom league as being middle of the top league, there's really not that incentive besides glory or honor to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
yes,
we all
fans
know
would
that
want to
that's
be in
not
the
worth money.
fans will want to be up there, but if an owner's like, why would I spend an extra $200,000 on players? Depending, I don't, contracts are weird in this sense. $500,000 on players when to be at the top level when I can make the same amount of money by revenue being in a lower league and paying them less, so it like offsets like the concessions or tickets that would be different type sense.
Yeah, but I kind of going back to the positive side of things, I think with this move, this would give the USL a really good argument to make USL champion a D1 league within the US soccer pyramid, which is at the top with the MLS. because like I mentioned earlier, within FIFA bylaws, there are things in there about being a top tier league that talk about promotion and relegation. And to this point, the MLS has been able to kind of skate around some of that by having a closed promotion system. So teams like Orlando City coming in because of success, not because they bought the license or anything like that. So they've been able to kind of skirt around those rules that I think USA Soccer may then see USL Champion as an equal league, which could skyrocket their profits, right?
Yes, but I'm for that. But in my opinion, the pro rail system needs to be around 6 years before they try that. It needs to be, can this succeed?
Sure. Got to have proof of
Can this
concept.
succeed before we try to push against the big dogs?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't go, all right, we're going pro rel. All right, we're going to get D1 sanction. We're going to compete directly with the MLS, and then you get burned. See if it works. And in the sense of like, and here's another thing where I think it could happen is this is the first USL season since kind of the relaunch of the USL, and it kind of expanded. It's been around since '86, but it's been weird. It's the first one. It's like really solid. That there's not a single MLS affiliated side in any USL.
Yep.
So there's not Orlando City 2 in League 1. There's not any of these MLS 2 clubs in any league. So MLS has no say. They have no skin in this game now for this
Yeah.
vote. So they have no affiliation or no pushback unless the USL tries to get the championship to D1. Then they can talk with US Soccer and maybe push back against it. But right now, that's why I think they need to implement it and see how it goes within its current format, or adding a middle team, but something where the USL is just like, we're still being lower leagues. We're seeing how this works, and then we'll push it forward.
Yeah, you don't want to rush into it at all. But, on the negative side of things, and I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to sound like I am very negative towards this, but I promise you I'm excited about it. I want to make sure that this is not the USL just going for a big cash grab, because this tournament, their playoffs, if there are playoffs for promotion and relegation, is going to be a high commodity TV product that they can sell, right? Those late season matches, which now don't mean much, especially for the bottom tier of the table, are going to mean a lot more because teams could get relegated. So I don't want this to be a full cash grab by the USL. I really hope that they do have overall USA soccer and advancing our nation and our national team in mind.
And yeah, that's fully how it is, because now you can, with Pro Rel, if it happens, you can also have a kid develop and come
Yep.
up, and like in the sense of a kid can be 16, make their debut for a lower tier side and move up, and as they're going up and developing, they're playing and their team's doing good, they're playing more competition, and that preps them for the men's national team or the women's national team if they get more established.
Well, and speaking of the women's side of this, that I don't know if this was addressed in the article. If it was, I kind of overlooked it because I didn't have the full article to read. But is this just for the men's side, or is this going to include the women's side as well?
So this is just the men's side, because the women's have not gone in the USL. They have not gone professional. The Super League launches next year.
Yeah.
And right now that's only one division.
Okay.
And that is a direct challenge. So I also think the Super
NWSL.
League. Yep, but then they're playing opposite. So the NWSL is playing essentially the European schedule. They'll take like a month break in the winter, or that type of thing. 6-week break in the winter, that type of thing. But they are challenging the NWSL, but they're not going in the sense right at their schedule. It's like the early USFL versus NFL. They're very much we're not playing the same season. There might be some overlap, but we're not playing the same season, because I think that the USL is seeing, can we even compete and draw enough to that sense. And it could be like the NWSL has what 14 teams?
I
12
honestly
teams?
don't know off the top of my head. That seems right because I know it's more than 12 and it's less than 16. So yeah, 14 seems about right.
They don't, like, in general, they have half the amount the MLS has.
Mm-hmm.
So where the USL could question going up, like, against the MLS because they have 30 teams now. They have 12 teams in the NWSL.
Yeah.
There's less markets that the Super League is competing against in that sense. Yeah, and this is needed. The Pro Rel in general is needed because the USL at its rate cannot survive in this sense of just growing and growing, but not being a Division II their entire time. That the money's gonna run out.
So apologies, there are only 12 teams in the NWSL. So yeah, you're right. Like between the Super League teams and the NWSL, there's only going to be a finite amount of that top tier for that money to be spent on. So then that kind of takes me to some of my other thoughts here. And really my next con is more about that League Two structure. A lot of those teams are going to fold or be completely reshuffled out of the USL or into something else. Maybe they create more of a semi-professional rank where those clubs can go play in. So a lot of teams are going to fold. But what is that going to mean for the clubs that do stay? Right? Like, do they just profit off of the loss of players, or does it hurt that those first couple years of promotion relegation? If who's number one right now in the USL champion
Championship
in the championship?
In the East, I believe it is. Let me pull
Pittsburgh's number two. I just can't remember who's number one.
Tampa Bay Rallies, and then the Tampa Bay Rallies and Sacramento Republic are tied on points. If you want to go off goal differential, Sacramento would be the top.
So let's use Sacramento then, because I think that kind of really emphasizes my point based off their run last year in the Open Cup. If Sacramento in that next season, for whatever reason, they have a bunch of injuries and they get determined they're getting bumped down starting in a lower league, you're talking about a franchise that was looking to go MLS last year, the year, in the early parts right before the pandemic. They were looking to go to the MLS. Like, that was a big push. Now you're all the way at the bottom of the USL. That's going to be a hard financial burden that I don't know if that club or any club could stand. Kind of like what you were mentioning earlier with, your player fees and stuff like that. You're not going to be able to pay those high tier players if you've got a bottom tier salary.
Now, there is an addressment of that in the article, and it says that, and this is kind of a 2024 thing of figuring out how to fill that middle league. It would be based off of sporting merit, would dictate some clubs dropping from the championship to the new circuit. So in that sense, I think Sacramento Republic sporting merit keeps them up. Right. Does it keep up Hartford Athletic though? Does it keep up some of these teams that are struggling?
Rhode Island, whenever they come in, are they going to be able to stay up?
I think the new expansion sides for sure are the ones who will be at the chopping block. Since Arkansas just got announced today.
Yeah, shout out. Good job,
Arkansas. And it sucks.
Terrible timing.
Yeah, it sucks if that's what the case is. But I in my personal opinion, expansion sides should, if you have Pro Rel or it's going to start in a season or that type of thing, and you have this new league launching, expansion sides to all be added to that new league. In general, they shouldn't be, a club should not get relegated at the same time another club's joining that league.
Yep, 100%. 100% agree with you. But that takes me to my next kind of con or concern area is, what does this mean for the smaller leagues, right? is the USL going to raid the UPSL NAI? Oh, wow, NAS. Let me try that again, folks. My
NISA.
apologies. NISA, and all of those, blank Premier Leagues. The Midwest Premier League, the Eastern Coast Premier League, like all of that stuff. Are they going to get raided? Are they going to raid each other then to create stronger leagues for themselves? That if that kind of stuff happens, you're talking about not only clubs folding, you're talking about leagues are going to have to fold, and that's not going to be good for USA Soccer. Not at all.
I think the UPSL is okay in the sense was like the same with USL 2. I think some teams are going to fold, but the
Mm-hmm.
sheer amount of teams in USL 2 and in the UPSL, in my opinion, right now is not sustainable in general. There's way too many. I get that they're amateur, that type of stuff. They're right now at the
Semi-professional.
amateur, semi-pro,
Oh, don't
pre
get me
pre
started, John.
pre-professional type thing. Yes, they're professional, but they're not getting paid.
Me and that one
Since
dude went round and round on Twitter. Well, you and I can go round and round next episode.
but they're at a point where they're not, in my opinion, they can't survive at their current growth rate. There's new
Right.
clubs joining all the time. They, as general, need to address themselves to figure out. So
That's a good point.
I think in general, the only league that's in trouble is NISA, because NISA
Yeah.
is the only lower division professional club off the top of my head that's not MLS affiliated, because there's like MLS Next Pro and stuff like that.
I don't think those kind of clubs matter. If
Yeah,
I'm being
but
honest, like those teams don't really matter.
NISA is the one league that's in danger. And if I was NISA, I would talk to the USL about maybe
Merger.
NISA becoming the lower. Because if I'm USL, I'm not making NISA my middle team. I'm saying, okay,
No.
NISA, how about all your clubs go in what would become our third division, and we take USL League One and just make them the second division? Because that way you're sticking with your clubs, and then NISA can survive. And that creates some rivalries because off the top of my
Yeah.
head, Chattanooga has two teams.
Yeah.
Chattanooga already has issues and rivals within themselves. This is
Yeah.
from some of my talks in the supporter group community, because Chattanooga FC, which is the NISA side, had been there, existed for there. Tate Robinson of Lexington played for them. And then the Red Wolves just popped up because USL allowed them to exist. Like Chattanooga FC is one of those clubs that is like Detroit City FC, where it like started as semi-pro, as
Yep.
beer league kind of, and they got some money and they just kept moving up.
Well, and that could create a really interesting thing in Louisville as well. I've seen a little bit of
Yeah,
rumors
Louisville
about Metro
Metro Stars
Louisville
or
going to NISA. So now is Louisville about to go from no professional teams, a few years ago, to now having a number one tier team and a bottom tier team? I don't know how many other cities could be looking at that kind of a situation.
and it's good. In general, it's good
Yes.
because people are talking. There's territory rights. People are talking about. I was like, territory. Tell that to London. Tell that to Manchester. Tell that. Oh, Paris doesn't really have a thing. Tell that to Milan. Tell that to Rome. Rivalries are good,
Yes.
especially in smaller cities. London
Yep.
had what, 8 teams in the Premier League. I don't
I
care
don't
how
know. Way
densely
too many.
populated. I don't care how densely populated London is. If London was in a closed system like America, there'd be two,
Yeah. Two.
maybe three, because New York has some 3 teams. Like the
In
New
what?
Jersey, the New Jersey Devils are a New York team. They play in Newark. They are literally on the other side of the bridge from Manhattan.
Okay, that's a hard one because the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils. I get it.
They're literally all in the same type thing, in the
Yeah.
sense of like it would be like saying a team in Elizabethtown is not Louisville, or like Frankfurt is not like Lexington or Richmond, or I don't know of another town right next to Bowling Green, in the sense of like this is literally the town over
I
type
think that
sense.
would be like Scottsville, Glasgow, stuff like that. And trust
Yeah,
me, neither of those places are even close to a USL team.
true, but in the
They're not
sense
even
of like
UPSL consideration.
if they're there, if a team pops up and it's competing against Bowling Green FC in I'll be optimistic of the 5th division. I'm saying the whole pyramid gets thing. That's a rivalry.
Yeah,
They're close.
instant
That's close
rivalry.
proximity. That's a rivalry. And I've seen this with Lex. We've manufactured rivals.
Yeah,
They literally said like, we're gonna name Knoxville versus Lexington battle before they play the match.
yep.
Our first match ever was against Knoxville, and the USL like released this thing between the USL and the two teams of like, hey, we're gonna call it. I think it's called the Battle of the Barrel now or whatever,
Something like
because
that.
it's
Yeah, the
but
bourbon
it's
barrel battle or something like
yeah.
that. The
But I
BBBBBBB.
saw that. I was like, okay, I get that there's rivals because UK and Tennessee are both based in the cities. Like they're like, it's not a manufactured rivalry in the sense of like people from Lexington already don't like people from Knoxville in a sense, but the teams themselves were not rivals.
Right.
Lex is developing some sort of a rivalry with Tormenta organically through Twitter feuds and stuff like that.
Those are the
But
best.
and the players are chippy in that type of sense. But these would be genuine rivalries.
Yeah, like inner
LouCity
city
playing
rivals.
Metro is a genuine
Ah,
rivalry.
that would be a dream.
It would be dope. King's Hammer, technically, are they technically a Kentucky team?
They're not. I thought at one point their women's USLW team played in Kentucky, but they do not. They are all based in Cincinnati and Dayton area. I think
Okay.
they might have a small youth presence in northern Kentucky called Kings Hammer South or something, some version of that. But no, the Kings Hammer is predominantly in Cincinnati, which
Well,
again,
then,
as we talked previously, is basically Kentucky.
yeah, within King's Hammer and FC Cincinnati type thing. If it happens, we've seen it. Luton Town has come from 5th. We have their whole story with Wrexham.
Yeah,
Like it's happened before, and it creates some awesome stuff. And it can create awesome stuff. The territory rights argument is stupid, and that's just a closed league argument for the sake of making money and not the sake of actively trying to put a competitive team on the field. As the sake of like, I just want to be my investments be protected, which is valid.
yeah,
You're sinking a lot of money. I'm saying that's valid, but at the same time, it's going. I don't want to be challenged. I don't want to be forced to spend more. I don't want to be forced to try to have to put a competitive team on the field more than I already have to, because I don't want
agreed.
my fans to go to another team that's literally if you could do the case of Everton and Liverpool, literally on the across the street.
Yep.
They don't want
And
that because they're scared, and it's a valid fear, but it's the best thing for sports, the best thing for the spirit of the game.
agreed. And the last thing I kind of want to say on that little topic there, if the UPSL, NISA, whoever, Midwest Premier League, whoever partners with the USL to send teams up into that bottom tier, there would definitely still be some kind of a fee in place. Um, it would have to generate revenue for the USL, and the club would have to be able to show that they can produce revenue, maybe not to the same level initially, but they can at least compete financially with those other clubs. But John, the next kind of questioning kind of thing that I had was, how is the MLS going to respond to this?
I
Are they
think
going to go pro rel? Because that would be insane to have two pro rel leagues in the same country.
I think two things. I don't think
Okay,
MLS would go pro rel on its own
I don't either.
because it's impossible. The only way for them to do that in a genuine sense is for another 10 teams to be added.
Yeah, I'd put them at 40, 20, 20, but that's only a top and bottom kind of a thing.
Yeah, but it's still some pro rel. It's not perfect, but it's the only way I could see that happening. In another sense, what I could see is if, in the sense where I said the USL needs to, if they do it, they need to wait a few years to see how well it does, and they push, like, we want to become D1. I could see the MLS going, well, how about you stay 2, but we partner with you and the USL, you're still 2 because it'd still be like England because the Premier League is technically its own thing outside of the English Football League. It would be essentially England then. You would have MLS and then you would have USL right underneath, which I think is the perfect ideal world. The numbers you would have to figure out because you're not having a 30-team top flight type thing. That's just too many and it's hard to figure out that type of thing. But then that's what happens. And it's going to be hard because if I'm San Diego, I don't want to appear in the league and be told you're going to get relegated after I paid $500 million to join said league. And so I think with some of the teams coming in, they might get a protection clause of maybe 2 seasons of you can't get relegated. Some people might get angry about that, but a sense of you can get your feet underneath you. Maybe a season. Maybe you just give them a season. 1 season, get your feet established, get kind of growing pains out of it. But then next season you have to, or you do a separate. I don't know how you would do it. I see where San Diego could get mad if they appear and they're like, all right, we're doing pro rel. And they're like, what?
Right.
Because Cincinnati joined the MLS and they sucked.
Absolutely.
So if they had joined that, they literally bought their way in out of the championship only to get then drop right back down into the championship. So there should be a protection for some of it, but it creates wanting to be competitive, and then that creates even more competition because then you might have a person like, off the top of my head, like Brandon Vasquez. Or I believe he plays in MLS. I'm not that great with MLS players off the top of my head, but Brandon Vasquez might choose to play for LouCity to get them into and stay, and you have more club loyalty, I feel, in that sense, because you're with the fans from type of thing. Like Luton Town is in it with a guy who was on that National League team. He has stayed with them, and now he's in the Prem with them. That guy is gonna, if he does somewhat decent for them in the Premier League, he's gonna get a statue.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's statue worthy. That's a statue worthy player, and I think those exist in America right now. There's definitely, you can argue it for some players, but it becomes even more when that player is so crucial of such a certain part of that club's history of when you're going up and that type of thing.
And I just quickly wanted to address the comment that was there. I'm assuming that's from a Lexington fan or a Metro Louisville fan or someone talking about a real derby with LouCity would be awesome. Yeah, I think any kind of a rivalry between, Louisville versus LouCity versus Metro Louisville or LouCity Lexington, twice a year, a home and away kind of a thing would be fantastic for this state. And to really build that rivalry, because I honestly think we were lucky to get that matchup in the Open Cup. I would really want to see more of those matches between the two moving forward.
From what I'm hearing about the Open Cup, is that's probably going to be a normal matchup every year.
Good.
Is that they're regionalizing it, which yes, it's good, and I love us playing Louisville. However, I don't necessarily like the default. Your first Open Cup game is always going to be against Louisville. Same thing for Louisville. It's a little, but I get it. It's understandable. But in the same sense of Pro Rel, you have just in the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, you could throw in St. Louis because it's right there.
Yeah.
Type thing. If you get a sense where they're all in the same league, do you want to see how American fans can truly support their teams? Put teams close together. If Louisville has away days at St. Louis, Indianapolis, Lexington, Cincinnati, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Nashville too.
Yeah.
You add in that, and you could even add Chicago. That's not too far. That's 7, 8 teams. And that's 16 games of where away fans can travel and support their clubs in a non-super costly way.
Yeah.
And it's fair. Because, what sucks about being a West Coast person is you're more spread out than anything.
Oh, yeah. You're isolated.
St.
They
Louis
could
is in the Western Conference in the MLS. They are closer to Chicago, which is in the East, than they are to Seattle.
Which in the MLS is not the only league like that, right? Like there have been other times where I've seen like the St. Louis Blues. I think they might still be in the Western
They're still
Conference.
Detroit Red Wings were in the Western Conference until
What
like
the hell?
2014. Well, that goes back to the original 6 days when there was 6 teams and it was Toronto, Detroit, Chicago in the West, and Montreal, New York, Boston in the East.
So
So
the
like, and they
far
just
east versus the Midwest.
and they just kind of kept it that way. But
That's insane. Well, I guess
I
I
was
should have known that Nashville's in the West. Should have known that. And they're in there with Chicago.
hockey's a little different. Hockey's a very northeastern clustered sport
Yeah.
in general. It's expanding,
Anyway.
but it in general. But in that's fans will travel if it's a reasonable travel, and you could
Agreed.
get that. You could get 8 teams within 10-hour drive at most, probably at most, and that's probably pushing it.
Which would be fantastic. Like I
That
would love to be within that kind of a bubble in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, and I'm being optimistic because it's in the area we're in.
Yeah.
But it could be the same for anywhere
Mm-hmm.
type thing. Like that's why northeastern teams always like these people hate each other because it's so
they've
easy
hated
to
each other for
travel.
years.
Well, it's so easy to travel. The reason Boston and New York Red Sox Yankees fans hate each other is because they can easily travel and be annoying.
Yep.
Yankees fans can go be annoying in Fenway easily. I, as a Tigers/Reds fan, cannot go to Kansas City and be annoying as easy. Type
Can't
thing.
go to
It's not that
Chicago as
easy.
easy.
Yeah. So it closeness helps. The Manchester Derby, closeness helps. The North London Derby. They're literally right by each other. That's why they hate each other. They see each other all the time.
Well, so the last kind of thing that I wanted to talk about on this, John, is talking about salary minimums. Because I think we have to get rid of any concept. And if there is any concept of a salary cap, this is doomed from the start. But I do strongly think that a salary minimum needs to be in place just to keep a competitive ish balance. At least financially speaking, if not also on the field as well. So I definitely want to make sure that there is some kind of a salary minimum for each league. Obviously, it'll get higher and higher as you go. You know, it could be a situation where the bottom of the championship is the top of, you know, the tier 3. So I just want to make sure that we have something like that on the table from the jump so that everybody knows, okay, starting in 25 when Pro Rel starts, you got to have this much minimum in salaries.
There should be player minimums for each league. So that's especially
Totally
if a team
agree.
gets pulled up and they're have like a young kid, they're not still paying him at like lower league level.
Yep.
And there should be a salary floor. Definitely. It shouldn't be that much difference.
No.
It shouldn't be that great of a difference between each league because if it's 250,000 between the second and the first, that can be a lot of money to a team, and that can mean they get relegated again. So it should be not too much of a difference, but it should exist, and then that should be it for salary thing. I am a firm believer what hurts MLS the most is its stupid salary rules. It's the most complex league. I don't understand
It
designated
doesn't
player.
make
I don't
sense.
understand where all this money is coming from, but they're capped. Like Inter Miami is linked to 8 different players. I'm like, don't you only get 3 designated players? Why are you linked to all these players? I don't get it. But
Like
it's what's
I love
hurting
Inter
the
Miami,
MLS.
and I don't understand what's going on with him. Like, how are we affording all of these players? Let me just say, how are we affording Messi alone? But then when
Because
you're
the
adding
league is
all
paying
these,
for half of that.
thank you
Shirt sales,
MLS and everyone who
Apple.
has Apple TV Plus. Thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciate it. I'll never be able to afford to go see him play because those tickets are like $500 for the no seater like bleacher seats.
Open Cup match against Cincinnati. I got the notification that the tickets open. I looked and they were started at $380.
Yeah, nope.
Cheapest rate. They just opened.
And I don't even know if he's going to be able to play in the Open Cup. I don't know when
The Open Cup
rosters.
one, is August. His debut is supposed to be on July 21st.
But like, when was the roster cut off for the Open Cup? Like, was there a June cutoff for that August matchup? I don't know.
I'm not. Then that's also something that irks me. Is
did you get tickets to that game?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did not.
If you did, and he's not playing, boy, I'd be peeved off.
The Open Cup's rules about player stuff, that kind of annoys me a little. But I'm not. That exists with the FA Cup and all that type of stuff. It's just, I feel like roster limits, roster rules are kind of stupid in general. The floor should definitely exist. It should exist in all sports, because it should be, this is the minimum to be a competitive team. You can't be the Oakland A's and actively choose to not spend money.
Yep.
Especially when your stadium's falling apart. That's the worst part of, I say, of the whole Oakland situation, is the fact that their product is terrible and their stadium's falling apart. If your product's terrible, but you just renovated the stadium with a bunch of money, fans might be a little more okay with the terrible product for that one season type thing. But there should always be a floor. I'm pro player in any sense. I'm never pro owner.
Nope.
Because I'm sorry, even if players are making millions of dollars, that's still less than billions.
Agreed. And, I think that can be a really great another off the top segment in a future episode to talk about, these stadiums and funding for them, and why are all of these public funds being poured into stuff like that when you've got billionaire owners who could afford it like that and would never notice the difference. But John, final thoughts here on promotion and relegation as a possibility in the USL.
It needs to happen. They need to do it smart, not just do it to have it. So they need to make sure everything's okay. That's why I said they don't need to challenge MLS until they get all the kinks figured out. And don't do it. They should do it in a way that makes the leagues even on numbers of teams, because that's, or as close as to possible. Like the Premier League is 20 and then it's 24 in the championship. So that's 4-team difference I can take. But it shouldn't be like it is now. It shouldn't be one league is half the size of another.
And then the bottom league is quadruple one of the other leagues.
Yeah.
But with that, we will wrap up our very first live episode of Bluegrass Soccer Cast. John, we survived. We did it. I don't know how we did it, but we made it through. Some technical difficulties to start, but here we are. Yeah. Make sure that you are following us on all of our social media sites: Instagram, Twitter, Threads, YouTube, etc. All of them have the same username, BG Soccercast for Bluegrass Soccercast. Make sure that you listen to our podcast. This will be uploaded very soon to all your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google, YouTube, and others. And overall, make sure that you're following us and giving us all the support. We've got that link at the top corner, where is it, over there somewhere, to support us with Buy Me a Coffee. We always appreciate any kind of support with that as well. Now it's right over there. But this is Jimmy, that's John, and we will see you on the next one.